Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. All the characters in the story who enter into intimate relationships are over 18 years old. Young woman, the one I found on the side of Route 34th, she became my wife. Agree, not everyone is so lucky to pick up a girl lying in a ditch, not needed by anyone, but very appetizing. I'm a lucky guy. Delia Gardner, née Collins, and I lived in a rented house on North Euclid Avenue after our wedding, very close to her parents' cottage. A nice little house with a white veranda and a two-car garage at the back of the plot. Absolutely inexpensive. For example, in Chicago, you would have to pay an order of magnitude more for renting such housing. This is Princeton, a small town. What do you want? When I rented a room from the Collins family, Delia and I regularly corrected her self-doubt. Often, a girl would sneak out of her bedroom into my attic in the middle of the night, and we would quietly enjoy chatting. At first, they were mischievous with their hands. Yes, they satisfied each other, so to speak, as chaste as possible. Then I showed her some ways of working with language. Delichka was delighted with my linguistic skills. Our meetings became more frequent to the daily ones. To be more precise, up to the weekly. After a couple of months of such exercises, my girlfriend decided not to stop there. She decided not to limit herself to half measures, but to carry out a full range of procedures, from beginning to end. We have discussed this important step with Deli, and they came to the conclusion that motherhood is somewhat premature for her. I've stocked up on silicone. Despite all our attempts at conspiracy, I think Deli's parents guessed what was going on, and it was hard to remain in the dark when her daughter moans with passion at night in the guest's room. But both Dustin and Martha apparently decided that it was time for their daughter to enter adulthood. They weren't very good at pretending that nothing untoward was going on, as my mother-in-law told me later when we discussed this issue with her. You know, Timothy, compared to the little business I had before I met you, the new daughter looks like a lamp. She is forever beaming with happiness. And my father and I decided that even if it was temporary, then let him enjoy it. I'm just tired of her whining and crying before. And you? You inspired us with confidence. For some reason, Dustin and I were sure that you wouldn't hurt her. One day, about 3 months after my arrival, Delia was visiting me. The bed creaked terribly from our athletics. We realized that right away. Therefore, my Pasheka and I performed all the exercises on the floor. They just pulled the mattress off the bed and had fun to their heart's content without being distracted by extraneous plaintive sounds of the bed. That time, Miss Collins climbed on top of me. She decided to show me her horsemanship. It was a mistake. She just didn't have time to put a corner of a pillow or a lump of a sheet in her mouth. She screamed so loud that it echoed all over the house. After a couple of seconds, the door opened and the frightened parents of my Amazon burst into the room. In the semi-darkness, Martha and Dustin didn't quite figure out what was going on. They stood there, trying to figure out what to do. And I, looking out from under the girl who fell on me, wet with sweat, said, "Good evening." Somehow, nothing clever came to mind. Deli turned around, covered herself with her hands and screamed, "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" "Daughter," Martha began, "you screamed so much that we thought. We didn't know what was going on and we were scared. We were scared for you." Delia calmed down a little and asked, "Mom, Dad, of course, I am grateful for your concern and all that, but please come out. We are in this position. I'm very uncomfortable." Mother-in-law and father-in-law disappeared, and I decided that it was time to stop this partisanship. And the next day, right in the morning, over a cup of coffee, I asked the owners of the house for their daughter's hand in marriage. Well, what about it? Maybe I didn't have a youthful passion for my business, but it suited me in every way. Oh, falling in love. I've already burned myself, that's enough. And Delia is acting like a girl in love. Yes, she loves me. It's absolutely obvious. And I feel good with her. It's kind of homey. Delia Collins, of course, is ridiculously naive. But this, in my opinion, is not a critical feature of it. Only Mom came to our engagement party. Dad had a major surgery planned, and he couldn't find the time. I didn't take offense at my ancestor. He is too important in the work of the clinic. The lives of many people depend on it. And Mom took a week off and visited me. Towards nightfall, after a good meal, after all the talk about the wedding and our future family life, we went to bed. Delia's relatives dismantled all the guest rooms, and Mom decided to sleep in my birdhouse. I threw an air mattress on the floor for myself and arranged Mombeth on my bed. We whispered for a long time in the dark. She's a very naive girl, Mom said. No, no, I'm not saying she's stupid. She just has little idea about life. It's amazing to me how the Collinses managed to raise her like that. She looks at the world through rose-colored glasses. You know, these girls are called simpletons. Mom, Delia has felt like an ugly fat woman all her life. That's why she was self-contained. So it turned out such a naive creature. She turned 20 a month ago, and she was a virgin. Can you imagine? We were silent for a while. Then I added, well, what do you want from an underage child? And the fact that she's not very smart, so I don't have to solve integral equations with her. We have enough other worries, especially at night. Mom giggled, and I complained. I've already had a lot of grief with one smart girl. Yes, my son, you're thinking right. Try to be happy and make this girl happy. I like her. I wish I had a daughter like that. I'm 10 years older than my wife, Delia, and I'm a little complex about it. Something inside me is slowly gnawing at my consciousness. I attribute this to my lack of confidence in my brutality after my divorce from Rosa. But it's true. By the way, and again, the hot Illinois summer. This year, the temperature in June was kept at 85. It's not as scary as 2 years ago, when all the crops and part of the forests of Illinois burned down. But still, it's quite uncomfortable. When Delia put her devastating question on the Saturday morning agenda, I got a little fucked up. At first, I thought it was a joke. But it turned out no. She's serious about it. Yeah, darling, she said to me, pacing around the bedroom in only knitted panties in search of a suitable bra. How many women have you had before me? My God, Deli, am I counting them? So there were so many of them that you can't count them? I didn't like this approach at all. Well, all right. I'll do the math now. Should Rosa, my ex-wife, be considered too? Delia thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, Timmy, consider it. Students of different university courses differ in their approach to life. Students of medical faculties are interested in their attitude to intimacy. Not all of them, of course, but for the most part. Their need for intimacy is on a par with the need for food, fluids, and sleep. That is, if a need has arisen, then it must be satisfied. While studying at the University of Illinois, I had intimate relationships with 5 girls. No one considered it unusual or indecent. We were good friends, helped each other with our studies, and had a great time. But that's until I met Rose. Love, this is serious. This imposes certain obligations. And Rosa Turner and I cut off all third-party connections. When Roz and I graduated from university and were about to enter residency, we got married. My parents had money, they earned very well. Dad told me when I told him about the decision to get married, Timmy, don't look at other people's opinions. You are our only son, and we gave birth to you in order for you to become successful and happy. My father looked at me carefully to see if I understood what was being said correctly. I nodded in agreement. We're paying for your tuition, the parent continued. We support you financially. We do not require you to tear your veins and earn your own higher education and for your life. You don't have to put on a credit yoke to pay interest all your life. Devote your time fully to your studies. This is the only way you will become a competitively capable specialist. Dad, I told him. But now I'm going to have my wife, my woman, and I have to provide for her. You have to study now. First of all, gain knowledge and experience. Understood? So far, we have fully provided for your needs. Your mother and I have enough resources to take care of another child. Beth and I were counting on at least 3 children. But it turned out the way it turned out. You're our only one. We will accept Rosa as our child. Calm down. These are my ancestors. And I tried not to let down their hopes and justify their guardianship. And, just a year later, I discovered that my relationship with Rosa was somewhat non-exclusive. Apparently, she was unable to eradicate the student habit of not limiting herself to leisure partners. As I discovered, It's a matter of the 10th importance. But the evidence was damning. We got divorced. I've been grieving for a long time. If it wasn't for Mom and Dad, I would have failed my residency. They were constantly pushing me in the back towards graduation. Unfortunately, I was not awarded the golden shoelace. But my theory and practice were still at a good level. One day I asked my mother if she had ever cheated on her father. She looked up from her book, calmly looked at me over the top of her glasses and asked, "Do you love your father?" "Yes, of course I do. He's a great man here." "Could you, for example," she thought for a moment, "slander him? Or stab him in the back? Or push him off a cliff into the abyss?" Oh my God. I was indignant. "Mom, how can you assume that?" "But you assumed that I could do that." "I'm sorry, Mom. I understand you. Sorry." Beth's mom just grinned and continued, reading her the Journal of Biological Chemistry. To be honest, I once tried to read the literature that my mother is so passionate about. I'm a medic, and I was wondering what my mother does at the clinic, and I'll be honest again, I didn't understand anything from the very first pages. I, a man with a higher medical education, looked at these arguments and formulas like a sheep at a new gate. "That's my specific, Mom." "6, I said to my wife. She started up. "6 what?" "6 pieces. Have you been in close relationships with 6 women before me?" "Yes, Deli. Yes. I'm really sorry that I didn't meet you sooner." "I see. And so, I thought about it. Maybe I don't have enough experience? Maybe I missed something in my life? Maybe I should try variety too? I was a virgin when you and well, and then we got married right away and that's it. I feel, how should I put it? I feel left out. Here, I've lost all my vocabulary." And Deli watched my reaction carefully and waited. I did not expect such a situation in any way. Everything seemed to be fine in our family. I will say more, everything was fine. Our love, our relationship, our intimacy. We thought that as soon as Delia finished her studies at the Chicago Institute of Technology, we would immediately have children. And here, I was the one who insisted that my wife get a higher education. Everything happens in life. In case something happens to me, a businesswoman should be an independent citizen. However, I didn't let her go to Chicago. She studied remotely. It cost a little more than full-time training. But I talked to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. They paid more than half of the cost of 4 years of study. After graduation, Delia should become, and has become, a manufacturing engineer for a garment industry enterprise. Her ancestors owned 3 sewing workshops in Sheath, Princeton, Malden, Casper, and Gwinnett. That's why I found this particular diploma useful for her. Delichka liked to study. Besides, she started running with me. Yes. I have a good 2-mile track. I ran through it slowly every morning in 15 minutes. To maintain the tone of the cardiovascular system and musculoskeletal system. After 3 months of living together, Deli asked to go for a run. Naturally, I agreed. We ran the first 2 miles for half an hour. When she returned home, she fell on the sofa and wheezed. Never again. Never. 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 The next morning, she came out with me in leggings, a tank top, and new sneakers. "You said that." "You never know what I said," she interrupted me. "Come on, don't stand there." A couple of months later, she and I ran my track in 20 minutes. And it is not surprising that Delichka has a waistline. This gave her the shape of an acoustic guitar. She became even more tempting to me. We were completely liberated in bed. By that time, we had been living as husband and wife for more than a year, but our passion did not wane in any way. We discovered something new every week and then tested this innovation for 5 or 6 days. We liked some of the new items especially, and sometimes we enjoyed them for a month. Daily physical intimacy only fueled our passion. These are the customs we have established. That's the life system. But that Saturday, the system failed. Something had to be done. I finally cleared my throat and asked, "You really want to? Do you want to try to sleep with another man? It seems to me that it will be good for me." That's how it is. For some reason, she didn't think about my benefits. God. Yes, she is still a child. Sometimes flighty, sometimes moody, sometimes cocky. I didn't know what to do. Deny her freedom of action? She'll be offended. She will consider herself humiliated. and at all, or give permission for adultery. And what's next? Although I knew exactly what was next, then there would only be a divorce. But, damn it, my marriage was on the brink of the abyss, and now everything depended only on her, on my wife. Tell me, Delia, did you make this decision yourself, or did someone suggest it to you? Deli was embarrassed. I'm texting with my former classmate, with Linda Williams. Stop. I stopped my wife. Is this Linda Roberts Williams? Yes, it's her. Do you know her? Yes. I treated her for trichomoniasis 6 months ago. Delia was not impressed. Apparently, she had not heard of such a disease. I didn't tell her that I had looked at the girl's medical history. In her 20s, she had already been treated twice for trichomoniasis and once for gonorrhea. Yeah, she was a bad counselor. And what did she tell you, this Linda Williams? Well, she said it was stupid and unfashionable to know only one man in your life. I've made up my mind. All right, Delia Gardner, I said reluctantly. You are not my property and I cannot dictate your actions to you. You'll decide for yourself, but you will also be responsible for the consequences yourself. Deli blinked in confusion, thought for a second, and decided. All right, Timmy, I'm a big girl, and I'll figure it out on my own. Thank you, but I don't want you to get hurt. That's why I need time to prepare you for this. I wanted to say debauchery, but somehow I couldn't turn my tongue. That's how our relationship wandered into some kind of garbage dump. This Saturday, I went shopping in Princeton. In our pharmacy at the clinic, I bought special, heavy-duty condoms. And I bought pepper spray at a gun store on West Long Street. Well, I also went somewhere for small things. I had everything ready for lunch. So, dear, you're going to do something stupid and dangerous, but if you think it's necessary, then I won't dissuade you. After all, it's humiliating to beg your wife not to cheat. Deli looked at me in surprise, but didn't say anything. I continued, look at this. These are the most reliable condoms you can get in Princeton. You have to use them. I don't want you to die of AIDS. Do you understand? Yes, Timmy. I got it. Thank you for taking such good care of me. Deli looked a little confused. Apparently she expected something else. Now this. It's a pepper spray. There's no telling what kind of jerk you'll run into. He might turn out to be a maniac. This canister will give you some minimum protection. Do you understand? Yes, Timothy. Everything is clear. We practiced snatching this canister out of the bag for about 15 minutes and practiced the order of its use. We went out on the back porch, and I made my wife let out some pepper spray. There you go, dear. You're almost ready. I did everything I could and made you as safe as possible. It's up to you now. She went on the hunt on Sunday. On a surprisingly cloudy Sunday in July, like my mood. At 7 o'clock in the evening. Damn it all. I once again instructed her about the possible dangers, and he escorted me through the threshold. Delia said she might not be back until the morning. She got into her Volkswagen up and drove away, and I flopped into a chair and froze in a stupor. He sat there until 9 o'clock, when the door creaked and someone entered the hallway. I got up to look at the visitor. It was my wife, Delia, gloomy as a thundercloud. I just sighed and returned to my chair, and Deli came in and sat on the couch across from me. They were silent. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. Aren't you interested in how it went? Deli, why am I going to pick at the wound? Think about it yourself. And you ask me, how did it go? Well, what about it? In short, my whole idea is complete crap. Complete and utter fucking bullshit. She nodded bitterly. Apparently, I'm a complete fool. Wow, this interested me, and it alarmed me. Deli, are you hurt? Are you all right? Oh, Timmy, I'm fine. However, not quite. Tell me, I commanded, and straightened up in my chair. In general, I went to the Black Rose Salon. Well, you know, it's on East Peru Street. Don't you know? Well, okay. This is a bar like that. He works until 2 in the morning on Saturday. There's alcohol in there, billiard, something else. I get it. If possible, get to the point. Yeah, his wife fidgeted. Get to the point. I was sitting there at the bar for about 20 minutes before James Wagner decided to come up to me. You don't know him? Well, why, I don't know. I treated him for lupus about 6 months ago. So, okay, To hell with lupus. Listen further. He sat down next to me and offered to buy me a drink. I didn't refuse. Well, word for word, our conversation turned to the topic of intimacy. I smiled sadly. Deli, sex and sleep together. It seems to be the same thing. To hell with it. You just need to listen. She paused. She appreciated my willingness as a listener and continued. I was openly flirting with him, and he seems like a good guy. He's just a bit dumb. I nodded silently, agreeing with her assessment. Well, that's it. And he invited me to take a ride in his BMW. It was clear that we would not ride in his car. But I'm an adult. I've made a decision. Do you understand? I was determined to get laid with another guy. I appreciate your perseverance and determination, I said sadly. Delia nodded again in agreement. We turned right onto 7th Street. There's a dead end there. And they moved to the back seat. And he immediately grabbed me and stuck to me like a leech. He's kissing my lips right now. And he's snuffling. And grabs me for everything, for all parts of the body. And crumples like kneading dough. And he stinks of beer. She shuddered. I decided to stop all this. It's dirty and disgusting. I told him that I didn't want anything. I'm sorry, I say, but I have to go. Here. And he grabbed my hand and won't let go. I'm asking him nicely. Jimmy, I tell him, let me go. I have to go home. My husband is waiting for me. And he started shouting that I was trying to dynamite him, and he slapped me on the cheek. Oh, he's a bastard. I jumped up. Show me your cheek. No, Timmy, it's okay. He didn't hit me hard. It's just a shame. Well, I took a spray can out of my purse, held my breath, and sprayed it in his face. Here. And while he was tearing his eyes out, I returned to my German and went home. That's the kind of date I had. After these words, I felt sick somehow. Despite the fact that nothing happened, my life has changed dramatically anyway. The next day, Sunday, right in the morning, we continued the conversation. While I gloomily heated yesterday's pies in the microwave and made instant coffee, Delia sat at the table, leaning her head on her palm and thinking. Finally, she asked, Timmy, I feel a little uneasy. It seems to me that I was stupid. Tell me, Timmy, did I really mess it up? You've pretty much ruined everything, honey. Is there any way I can fix it? I don't know. There are probably some ways to do this, but I don't know them. I'll consult with my mother. Good. Take advice. Deli did not have breakfast. She went for advice. She came back quiet and depressed. I asked, well, what did your mother advise you? Deli silently sat down at the table and stared glassy-eyed at the tabletop. Deli, I said, what happened? They were yelling like that. I sat down opposite and looked at my wife in surprise. For the Collinses to yell? Yes, they are the quietest people I know. They've been yelling at me all this time. Both of them. They first explained to me what a fool I was. Wait, Deli, did you tell them the whole story? You want to ask for advice? Well, yes. I asked my mom what I should do. I had to explain the situation somehow. God, holy simplicity. Well, how can you be offended by her? I sat and looked at this unreasonable child with pity, and my wife told me about it. Then they shouted that they had raised me wrong, that all their worries had gone to waste, and that I was an ungrateful daughter. Then they explained to me what would have happened if I had gone through with it and cheated on you. It took a long time to explain. So what was your advice anyway? I interjected. Did you recommend it? Oh, yeah. They advised me to crawl on my knees in front of you and ask for forgiveness. That's it? Yes. They yelled at me for 10 minutes. I'm shocked. And then Deli started crying. They're for me. Don't lie, why, Stop, stop. Deli, listen to me. Wipe your tears. I handed her a napkin. The person screams in 2 cases, either when he is in pain or when he is afraid. 10 minutes of screaming. So your parents were hurt and scared. Why do you think that is? Deli stopped sobbing and stared at me with that expression on her face that I adore. Eyes wide and mouth open. A guess. Were they afraid for me? Were they scared for me? Well, of course, Deli. You're their daughter, an only child. Naturally, they worry about you. They were hurt by your risky behavior. She stood up abruptly. I'll be right there. And she ran away. She returned only an hour later. still sullen and thoughtful. I set the breakfast to be reheated. My wife, sitting at the table, looked up at me. You know, Timmy, I realized something. I silently put a plate of pies in front of my wife and went to get coffee. Darling, aren't you interested? I sat down at the table and pushed the coffee towards my wife. Okay, tell me. No, said Deli indignantly. If you're not interested. Deli, stop it, I snapped. Stop acting like a child. You're 20, and you're giving me whimsy after whimsy. Tell me, come on. I never raised my voice at my wife. From the shout, she somehow shrank and looked at me in fright. I backed out. Well, I'm sorry. I'm all on edge. I haven't had such a shitty day in a long time. Tell me about it. I'm listening. The wife's eyes were wet with tears. She sniffed and decided, you know, dear, I'm not offended that you're yelling at me. I realized something. I was waiting. When I met you, my life changed. And I've changed myself. Really, really. I began to notice that people were paying attention to me. Men began to pay attention to me. You know, they look at me like that. This has never happened before. I chuckled. After her marriage, Delia really gained confidence and even some self-confidence. It's not just her figure and self-esteem that have changed. Her face, her gait, and even her gaze changed. What can I say? She has magically become prettier. I noticed that too. So what? And you love me? It seems to me that you treat me in a special way. Do you understand? Like a jewel. Well, do you understand? It seems to me that this is how a man should treat his woman. And I am. It seemed to me that everything was so magical because I was so special. And now I understand. This is not the case at all. It's not because I'm exceptional. It's because you're so exceptional. Here. Well, what should I say to her? He hugged me and kissed the top of my head. In the evening, I was going to leave for a few minutes. When Delia asked where I was going, I answered honestly that I needed to see James Wagner. Timmy, what are you doing? Are you going to hit him? Don't. Timmy, you are welcome. You're going to get in trouble. She was sobbing. I'm sorry, honey, but I can't let his offense go unpunished. I promise I'll avoid trouble. At least I minimize them. Timmy, I'm coming with you. Or better yet, Timmy, it's better not to go anywhere. Calm down, Deli. Everything will be fine. And he was strict. Stay at home and wait for me. Do you understand? No nonsense. Do you understand? No more nonsense. Stay at home. Don't go out. And he left. I met James at the Black Rose. I sat down with him at the bar and ordered myself a mug of beer. Well, Doc, how did it go? I kind of did everything right. I nodded. Yes, James, you did everything right. But you still owe me. This Collins. She spat some nasty stuff at me. Right in the eyes. Nobody told me anything about it. She's not Collins anymore. She's a gardener. Doc, should it make me feel better right away? James, I understand perfectly. Will 2,000 more on top suit you? Will it heal your offended soul? Oh, yes, document. That's a good amount. This is the right amount. Thank you. I counted out $200 bills and pushed the pack towards Wagner. He nodded gratefully and hid the money. Well, okay. I put down the unfinished beer. I have to go home. Thank you, James. I get discounts on any treatment. Okay, document. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Contact us if anything happens. And I went home to my naive wife.